I'm Julie Hindall, Director of Talent Development at JAXUSA Partnership. Let's launch into the question set before us today. And Pam is actually going to kick us off with our first question. And we've heard quite a bit of information about the Atlanta Fed this morning, but maybe there's a little something else you'd like to share about the organization and the role that you play specifically in the organization.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me, Julie?
Yes.
Okay, I just have to make sure, we've been remote for the last 2 years. And so technology sometimes is not our friend. But nonetheless, good morning, first of all, everybody. I'm so honored to be here. And yes, Chris actually did me a great service and favor. He covered quite a bit about the Atlanta Fed. One of the things that I do want to just offer up, and it is a quick story. So I started working here again about 10 years ago. And when I told my friends about it, they immediately said, "Oh, you work for the bank that actually prints money." And that is somewhat of a myth, if you will, particularly when you think about what Chris just covered. And so, what I just say is, what I love about the Fed, why I chose to work here, is the variety and experiences and the variety in roles and things that you can get from an exposure perspective. The second thing that I would just ask all of you on the call to do for us now that you know a little bit more about the Federal Reserve Bank is that you become ambassadors for us. Help us to share what it is that we do, the great and important work that we have as a central bank. If you could please help share that with others and to help us educate the public, we certainly appreciate that. And I, kind of deem you all now as honorary Fed ambassadors. Specifically as it relates to my role, so as Julie mentioned, I have oversight for our talent acquisition function. So my team and I have the great responsibility of helping to attract and acquire talent for the organization. Very critical role from an HR perspective. We certainly have responsibility for the bank's most important assets, our people, our talent. And so, if you are interested or anybody is interested in roles at the bank, they start with my team. And secondly, what I'd say when you think about the life cycle of an employee, the second piece is once someone makes the decision to become an employee, then we ensure that they are able to assimilate and onboard into the organization. So, again, my team and I are responsible for making sure that they are set up for that success. And while they are here, we offer those training opportunities, those development experiences to ensure that they are able to enhance their skills in their current roles, as well as preparing them for future roles and opportunities. So, all in the space of career development. So, again, thank you for having me today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for kicking us off, Pam. And next, Sharon's going to talk a little bit about TD Bank as well as the role that she plays within TD.
Perfect. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay, right? To always check in the
Yes.
audio as we do this. So perfect. Thank you. So yes, my name is Sharon Reis. I sit in Florida. I cover the entire state of Florida, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut for all things retail banking, commercial banking, as it relates regionally to your group. In the Jacksonville market, we have lots of exciting things happening there. We have a growth and development happening. We have a call center that's expanding. My role with the bank is all things human resources, from talent acquisition, similar to Pam's role regarding talent acquisition, bringing folks in, and looking at all the phases, performance development, compensation, and the promotable opportunities for the employees throughout the bank. We have 150 stores, or we call them stores, but 150 branches in Florida that are local in your market as well. Lots of growth and expansion, from new store openings to acquisitions to even a call center that's opening in Jacksonville. So I checked this morning, even before this call, and in your local market, lots of exciting opportunities. I think there's 60 openings right now in Jacksonville, and really 18 of those are entry-level positions. So we'll talk more about that as the conversation goes on. I've been in banking over 25, I stopped counting at 25 years. I've been in banking 25 years in human resources. And really, when I think back to how my career started, I was a bank teller in high school, didn't know what the other opportunities would present. I was a part-time teller after school, and one thing led to another. sort of the path was sort of laid out, whether I, intended it or not, right? That part-time job as a teller led to a job in finance at my university. And then after that sort of segued into the human resource areas of the bank. So lots of great opportunities to start your career in whatever capacity in the financial industry. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Mark.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharon. And Mark is going to give us a little bit of information about Bank of America and his particular role.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this morning. And I just want to share some information about Bank of America, which, as you all know, we have over 200,000 employees throughout the country and the world. And our focus is really on making the financial lives better for people, companies of all size and institutions in all facets of the business life cycle and a person's life. Here in Jacksonville, we have close to 8,000 employees, and we're led by our market president, Mark Bennett, in which we really focus on customer, community, as well as the teammates here in Jacksonville. My role as the market HR partner is to really focus on talent development and the health and well-being of those 8,000 employees to ensure that they're focused on the customers and the communities that we actually serve. And I'll talk more about that as we go through this discussion. And I just want to say once again, thank you so much for having me this morning.
Wonderful. We appreciate the time that you've all taken out of your busy schedules to be here and share your expertise with us. The thing that we want to talk about now are some of the significant trends that you're seeing in your industry. I think the perception is that the financial service industry is very static, and we know that that is not the case at all. So Sharon, I'd like you to start sharing some information with us about some of these trends that you're seeing in this established but very changing and growing industry.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, TD Bank, we are looking at lots of different ways to serve the customers, right? Through the pandemic, everybody wants to sort of work remotely. And so that created jobs that would work remotely and also helping our customers to access their banking remotely. So, way back when I started, right, we didn't have apps on our phones to transfer money. So we have apps to transfer money. There's websites to transfer money to help our customers and make things, really accessible from anywhere, from your phone, from your computer. So the digital systems and the access to move money around, pay bills, transfer money, certainly helpful to customers and to employees. The industry is certainly changing, right? You've got cryptocurrency out there. You've got all different kinds of things that are impacting customers, employees, and how we interact. So TD is always looking at sort of the latest and greatest of how we can do things. So lots of opportunities there. And TD is really looking at how we can best serve our customers and our employees as a trusted advisor and consultative advice to our customers, to our employees as they grow their career and grow their wealth.
Wonderful.
Sure.
Okay, very good, very good. Mark, what are some trends that you're seeing at Bank of America?
There are a couple things. So one, just to piggyback on what Sharon said, there's even more of an emphasis on being customer centric. Everything we do revolves around the customer. All activities, the way that we go to the market, it's really focused on the customer. It's pretty maniacal, and that's due to the competition, right? Because we have these other players that have entered the market, these non-traditional players, the fintechs, these super apps, non-banks, which are providing services that were not available 10 or 20 years ago. So as a financial services institution, we've had to evolve and make sure that though we're a big company, we're a pretty large company, we have to be nimble when we deal with the actual customers. And then the other thing is to manage risk. There's a huge emphasis on managing risk, whether it comes to the pandemic or geopolitical strife around the globe. Everyone knows what's going on in Europe. All of those things impact us because of our size, but also it impacts our ability to deliver to the customer. So, as we look at various things when it comes to these non-traditional players, as well as the things that are happening from a risk perspective, these are new trends that I would say maybe 20 years ago we were not as focused on, but we've learned some lessons based on the financial crisis of 2008, 9/11, and now it seems as though through the pandemic, though it was painful, we were able to manage that risk much more effectively, keeping at the forefront customers, the communities, and our teammates.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm sure that 10 to 20 years ago, it wasn't even a thought that there would be these non-banks competing against a very established banking system. So always needing to be nimble, as you said, to address those changes.
Yeah.
And those are characteristics of individuals that you're looking for in your workforce as well. I'm assuming, each of you, as you're thinking about those trends, that's going to translate into the qualities you need in your talent pipeline as well. So good for those folks to know that are listening on the call. Pam, what are your thoughts on the trends happening in the financial services industry?
Yes, so I will kind of echo the same sentiments that Sharon and Mark shared. Specifically at the Atlanta Fed, we are really focused on economic mobility and resiliency. So when you think about the talk that we're seeing and the impact that we're seeing of rising interest rates, the power of the dollar, for example, just making sure that we are continuing to educate not only externally the public, but also internally our staff, and understanding what things they need from a financial literacy perspective. And again, from an educational piece, what things can they put in place to ensure that they are able to, be resilient. And of course, I'd say kind of close that wealth gap, if you will. What I would say specifically about our workforce, and not just externally what we're seeing with candidates, but also internally from a retention standpoint. And Sharon, you touched on this a little bit, but it is that now desire for remote work and flexibility and work scheduling. Very dynamic opportunities is what we are finding people are looking for. So, again, with the pandemic, prior to that, I know some organizations had moved to probably a hybrid work model, or where, some segment of their population was remote 100%. We had a little bit of that at the Atlanta Fed, but not something that I would say was the norm. It is absolutely the norm now. And we have gone and I'd say just kind of reconditioned ourselves to say that remote work, it's a possibility and it can work. So we're trying to make sure that we can stay competitive in the market in terms of being able to offer those things and that flexibility, and ensuring that we're not losing out on talent as a result of, expecting folks to come into the office every day.
Very good points. Thank you so much, Pam, and for everybody for responding to that question. Definitely a lot of change and adaptation has had to take place to deal with these trends locally and globally.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to our next question. And this is definitely something that's at top of mind for our educators at any point, but certainly as we get closer to high school graduation. So what are some of the roles available within your respective organizations that offer a high school graduate a job opportunity? So let's talk about that, as well as what kind of opportunities are available for an adult with less than a bachelor's degree. So let's make sure we chat about both of those potential hires in the workforce. And to kick us off with that question is going to be Mark.
Yes, so I just want to start out by addressing this myth that many of the jobs in financial services require a bachelor's degree, but specifically in Bank of America, the majority of our roles do not require a bachelor's degree or an associate's, right? So we have many opportunities, whether it's sales, servicing, support, operations, software development. Just as I stated earlier, we're in the business of providing services to people and to companies and to institutions, which means, yes, we have bank tellers, which is part of our retail banking, but we have personal bankers, we have relationship bankers, we also have small business bankers, we have business bankers, right? So, and there's a support structure for all of those different areas. And then also on the people side, we have wealth management. So we have financial advisors, we have a private bank, right? So, I mean, just keep in mind, though, there are many, many roles, and they're throughout the country. And behind all of those different line of businesses, there are people that service that business. And then there's an operational arm. And then don't forget the staff support. There's HR, there's risk, there's training, right? There's a lot of different areas. There's finance, right? Now, in Jacksonville, we have over 7,800 teammates and opportunity. And the beauty of Bank of America here in Jacksonville is that pretty much every line of business is in the Jacksonville market, as well as the support and operations to back those different areas. So yes, we have bank tellers, but being a bank teller at Bank of America is just the beginning of what you can do in order to grow your career, and you can grow it in Jacksonville. You don't have to go to Charlotte. You don't have to go to Phoenix. You don't have to go to London. You can do it right here. And our market president, Mark Bennett, is living proof of that.
All right, well, we're going to put an exclamation point on all of that because we need our talent pipeline to stay and work here in this area so that we can continue to be as successful as you mentioned, Mark. Thank you for sharing all of that. And certainly anybody listening to this should know and feel confident that you could enter the financial service industry. You could do something like what Sharon did. She started off as a teller working part-time and now, manages a very complex HR system. So there's just so much opportunity. I'm really glad you kicked us off with that, Mark. Let's move to Pam. Pam, I'd like to hear your perspective on the different roles that are available to the high school graduate or the adult lacking the bachelor's degree.
Yes, thanks, Julie. So I'd say for both audiences, it's probably the same types of roles. So, and people may not think about this, but you heard Chris say law enforcement. So our law enforcement roles, again, there in Jacksonville, we have those opportunities where a high school graduate or someone with less than, say, an associate's degree can be considered, as well as our facilities and branch support team. So opportunities to just ensure that our buildings are maintained, ensuring that they're operating to the most optimal proficiency. And then within our cash services area, you saw the picture there with the cash vault. And there are opportunities there, various levels. And the other thing that I'll say is, of course, those represent opportunities for entry level assignments, but also career paths where you can progress within those particular roles and then be considered. Similar to Mark, what I'd say though is not all jobs here require a high school or a college degree. You can actually, think about some of the experiences that you've had. So we do consider equivalent years of experience as a consideration. And so what I'd say, if you look at our website and see some of the opportunities that are there, we try to be very specific. We may say a bachelor's degree is preferred, but it may not be required. And so I would certainly encourage someone to still apply because we like to look at a variety of experiences. Again, what that background is that you're bringing to the table. And just because someone does not have a particular degree does not preclude them from being considered from an opportunity here.
Okay, very good. So everybody should be paying close attention to the verbiage in the job postings. And if it says preferred, not required, they need to go for it. That's
Absolutely.
what I'm
And
understanding.
I'd even say if it says required, still go for it, right? Still put your name in the hat because you just never know. So.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for that insight, Pam. Up next to respond to the question is Sharon.
Yes, perfect. So very similar to the input from Pam and Mark, TD Bank, lots of opportunities, right? And they're easy to find at tdbank.com. Search for careers under tdbank.com. And then you can search by region, you can search by state, lots of local opportunities. And as I mentioned earlier in the call, I sit in Florida, but I cover 4 other states in the Northeast. So you can sit in this market and cover other territories. I've been doing that certainly even before the pandemic, but lots of local opportunities to grow, develop, and expand your career. When I started as a part-time teller way back when, my job before that was working in a deli. I was a cashier sandwich maker, right? So cash handling led me to cash handling at the bank. And then cash handling at the bank led me into student accounts and financial services at the university. And then I was a tour guide, and that led me into HR and admitting people into colleges, and then admitting people into banks and into human resources. So, you know, one step begets another. And there's lots of transferable skills within different industries, within different jobs. So as they were discussing about job descriptions, don't just focus on what the job title is. Look at what's in the description and what your skill set is, or what your student's skill set is, as to how they can grow and develop. Many organizations, just like TD, have tuition reimbursement. So if they're looking to go to college later on down the road, tuition reimbursement is a possibility. That means that the company that you work for pays or reimburses you for your college experience, your college expenses. So tuition reimbursement's available, benefits, paid time off, all of those things, super important. As far as local opportunities, I mentioned earlier about the contact center at the bank, TD's contact center. There's 18 entry-level jobs open right now within, certainly within the branch system. So tellers, we talked about, customer service reps, folks in the contact center that do sort of loan operations or debt payment coverage pieces. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm getting a internet unstable. You can hear me okay? All right, good. There, the wind is blowing in South Florida, and I think that the connectivity might be an issue. But anyway, lots of opportunities within different areas, right? The mortgage group, the wealth management group. We talked about law enforcement. Every bank has got, you know, code of conduct enforcement, guideline enforcement. Lots of roles that you can, you know, do research in. Leadership in other organizations, you know, sort of translate to leadership and supervisory skills here. Sales experience, analytical skills, cash handling. So, and I'd also say, be curious and talk to folks in the market. Like, if you don't have a bank account now, if high school students don't have a bank account now, you probably soon will get a bank account. Talk to your branch manager. Go, you know, and open up an account at TD Bank, at the other organizations that are on the phone today. Talk to people. They want to talk to you too, and arrange a lunch and learn, arrange time to talk to folks. And even throughout your career, be curious and talk to folks. People are certainly happy to share their experience and help folks along the way. So don't be shy, be curious.
All right, very good. That's great advice. And I think we've heard that, you know, your career path can be kind of meandering, but along the way, you're gathering to yourself these transferable skills that then are applicable within the industry. And there's certainly value that each of you see in that as well when you're looking at somebody as a potential hire. So I think that's a great point. The conversation about tuition reimbursement is relevant when we think about our next question as well. The typical education path that you may look for in prospective hires, or some of the really valuable skills or credentials that you'd like to see. I've heard some different skills mentioned throughout our conversation this morning, but I'm wondering if we can translate that to credentials that you really are looking for when you are thinking about bringing somebody in for an interview situation. So Pam, if you would like to start us off with that response, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So, what I'd first say is we don't have a specific education path that we say you have to have. What we think is really important, one is just someone that has, we value diverse backgrounds and perspectives first, right? So, having someone that comes in with a variety of experiences and things that they can add to the organization from a when we think about performance in our organization, we look at both the what, which is work that gets done, and how it gets done. So it's really that combination of technical skills and I'd say those soft skills. I'll be honest with you, since I've been here, we have really been trying to push the importance of those soft skills, right? So when you think about the ability to collaborate, the ability to influence without authority, the ability to problem solve, some of those things that, you may learn over time. And so I encourage folks to, if you have an interest in a particular job, look at it in terms of what is, again, those minimum qualifications, even the required qualifications. And if it's something that is of interest to you and you feel like, hey, I do have some of these skills, then put your name in the hat, because if nothing else, it gives you an opportunity to be exposed to the organization. And there may be other things that come out of those conversations. So it's not, everybody is not on the same path. And just set yourself apart in terms of the things that you think you can add and offer for a particular role that you may be interested in, and give yourself the opportunity to just share that with others as you go through particularly an interview process related to that. I'm rambling a little bit because I really want to stress the importance, and I think later hopefully I'll get to share some things that have been instrumental to me in my career and things that I have really abided by to help to drive my own development, if you will, and my own career path. One of the things that we say here at the Fed is that career development is employee owned, but employees not on their own, right? So there is support certainly that comes from others, but at the end of the day, I have responsibility for kind of driving my career. And so I offer those things just as considerations.
That's excellent. And yes, we definitely want to hear some of the advice that you would give to a person considering going into financial services. I think it's interesting too, when you're talking about soft skills or employability skills, as we have called them as well, the ability to influence without authority. So if you have a student that's just graduating from high school or somebody that's making a career transition, they're very new in that respective space, but they can still provide leadership. They still can provide influence. So I think that's a great phrase. I think we need to put a pin in that and reference that at a later date as well. So thank you for that, Pam. Mark, what kind of education path are you looking at Bank of America, or different skills and credentials?
Yes, so just to reiterate something from earlier, the majority of our roles do not require a college degree. And so therefore, we really have more of a skills first hiring focus. We really are looking for certain skill sets as we're sourcing and trying to attract talent to bring to the bank, right? And, we just are really focused on giving people different career opportunities. I could tell you, like 4 or 5 years ago, as the mortgage industry slowed down, we reskilled many of our fulfillment teammates in mortgage as the need for fraud went up, right? So we reskilled them based on their skills and their willingness to learn a different skill set. And now we've ramped up fraud because as automation increased, it increased the ability for the fraudsters to do more things, which made us create a much more, customer-centric focus on keeping fraud from out of the bank. So the key really is about skill sets. We're really looking for, folks that are nimble, flexible, but we are looking in these areas of like sales, service, operations, software development. And just as you said, if you've had a job working at a fast food restaurant and you've handled cash or you've done some customer service, right? I mean, that's what we're looking for entry level, right? And the candidate must be able to speak to it and articulate how those skills are relevant to what they're trying to do now. And that may be a bit of a challenge, but that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for someone that has a master's degree in a certain area for every single job. It's really about looking at those minimum requirements as were stated earlier, looking at your skill sets and being able to put on paper how your skill sets translate to what we're looking for those jobs. And as Pam has said more than once, going for it, right? Put your name in the hat and then work through the process.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And kind of advice that I'm taking away from this is make sure that you know when you go into an interview situation how to demonstrate that your skills have value. Maybe you
Yes.
didn't think they did, but they have an intrinsic value to the employer. And I'm also thinking even before you get to the interview process for our students who are developing a resume, they don't have an extensive work history to post on a resume, but they could lead off on their resume with the skills that they have. And I would imagine for the three of you, that would catch your attention.
Yes, and don't forget about those volunteer hours and those different volunteer activities and what skills they've learned volunteering in the local community, right? So those skills translate also. Don't forget about that.
Very
Yes,
good.
those extracurricular activities, if they have leadership roles as a part of clubs and associations at school. And I will also share 30 years in the game, and I'm not looking for a job, but my resume still leads off with those key skills that I have.
Very good. That's been one of your strategies for success, I imagine.
Mhm.
Very good. Let's hear from Sharon about her perspective on this one. Hopefully we're not having issues. She did indicate that she was having some concerns with her video. I still see that that her microphone is active, but we will move on to the next question. And Sharon, when you're ready to jump in, certainly let us know that you're there, and we'll make sure to loop you back in. But let's move on to our next question here. What do you say to students that may think financial services is all about tellers and crunching numbers? I think a lot of adults think that way as well. So, you know, you're thinking about parents or guardians as a potential support system to the student as well. What are some of the roles in banking that really, really break that mold?
Yeah, so here at Bank of America, I mean, just as I said earlier, I mean, we have, you know, many roles in which we're focused on the customer and it's based on the client, but also behind the scenes, we have teammates that have to service the individual or service the business or, you know, provide those treasury services or let's say, you know, whether it's a support role in legal or risk, right? I mean, these roles, while they're very important, they don't require you to crunch numbers, and they're definitely not a teller role, right? You don't have to handle money. Now, we do have quite a few roles where you handle money, and it's important, but because of some of the non-traditional players, it tends to put some stress on us from a staffing perspective because we're just not dealing with traditional bank employees. We have people from various walks of life. You know, the way we interact with our employees from technology is just a little different because of some of the nuances of that area, right? So with us having 7,800 teammates and supporting every line of business, we have many back office roles that don't require you to crunch numbers. And, you know, as I've said, sales, service, support, operations, software development, just to name a few. You know, don't forget HR, legal, you know, we have all of those different areas that people can get into, you know, once they get into the bank.
Right. And from what I've heard also before, it's don't worry so much about it because we have a formula that's already in place that will calculate as you maybe type numbers in. There's a formula that's calculating everything for you. So, you know, just really streamlining that role and encouraging people not to be afraid to take advantage of an opportunity because they may be a little nervous or apprehensive in that way. I see that Sharon is back on the call. Sharon, we are on the question about talking to students who may think financial services is all about tellers and crunching numbers. So what are some of the roles in banking that break that perceived mold? You know, and of course, how does a student pursue those, right?
Sure, perfect. Yeah, so lots of opportunities. As the other folks were saying, Mark and Pam were saying, lots of opportunities within the administrative support areas, right? Every department has administrative support. They're usually called either, executive admins or a specialist, a small business specialist, collections specialist. Like those are sort of support functions to the department. So that's kind of a way to an entry into the department. Operational type functions. The contact centers have various different roles and various different things in the contact center, right? It might be talking to customers and selling them products, or receiving phone calls that are coming in, customer questions that are coming in, or it's, I have a question about my mortgage, or I'd like to inquire about applying for a mortgage. So lots of different areas within the bank, or even like, paying bills, right? So they're going to call and say, I want to make a payment on my loan, or maybe I'm having trouble making my payments. Can you help me reduce my payments? How do I go about changing my loan? And so we have all different kinds of areas that, can support folks from an advice and trusted advisor type position. The call centers, I mean, we've got even summer help, summer seasonal help. Internships, those will come about every couple of months or so. Typically our internships start we start to recruit for those in the fall, like September, October, for the following summer of the sophomore years in college. But I think we'll get to some of those questions regarding internships. But lots of things. Every area of the bank requires operations, right? So it's wealth operations, retail operations, loan and vault, as we saw from the video in the previous slides. Every area of the bank works on efficiencies and operations, and we need folks to sort of help get through that. So lots of different areas in the bank, and all you do for many of us, right, is log on to the website of the organization, so tdbank.com, and look at careers. And you can search by city, you can search by state, you can search by customer service, you can search by sales or management. Lots of different opportunities for you to even change your career, right? There might be people on the call today who are looking to change their career. Maybe they've been out of high school a couple of years, they've been in another industry and looking to re-entry the workforce into a different line of business. Lots of opportunities for that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I would encourage each of you as panelists, if you'd like to put your company's website in the chat, that way we have it there for today's participants. And we'll make sure that we also include that in the event summary as well. So we'll have that information available as a resource for those attending. Pam, what are your thoughts on this particular question?
Yes, so similar to Mark and Sharon, certainly a lot of opportunities. I'd almost say those roles requiring you to crunch numbers are probably more of the minority in the organization versus the majority. I do want to highlight a couple that when you think about our organization that you may find that are truly unique or break the mold, as you state, Julie. The first is we actually have interior designers on staff here as employees. So if you have ever visited any of our buildings, hopefully you find that they are quite nice, and the beautification of them, it's just like, oh my gosh. So we have actually people on staff that help us to design, what our individual workspaces look like, to make them really inviting and cozy, if you will. We do have a full legal department. So some organizations may actually transact and have a partnership with an external law firm. We do that as well, but we actually in-house have a legal department that has lawyers that have certain and different specialties and areas of focus. So we are very fortunate in that we have a full public affairs department where we have a social media manager, for example. So when you think about the day and age where a lot of people are going to social media, Instagram, Twitter, etc., we actually have individuals that just manage those accounts for us. We have event planners. So in most of our buildings, we have the opportunity to host external events, and we don't have the good fortune of outsourcing that work. So we have event planners and audio visual techs on site that are actually helping to ensure that those events go off without a hitch. And the last thing that I'll share, and I forget the actual titles of these individuals because I think it changes, but we actually have what I'm going to call a corporate library function. So the actual team name is Knowledge and Information Services, but they serve as our internal media specialist, if you will, for our research department, for us as HR professionals, if we want to stay abreast of latest trends and things going on in the external market, they actually will go out and find those things and make those articles and resources available to us. So some things that you would not think about, very non-traditional in the sense of financial services, but we do have those opportunities available.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And certainly an expanded scope of opportunity than I would venture to say most of us have thought of on this call. So thank you all so much for addressing that question. So we kind of touched on this a little bit, but if a student is interested in an internship, which we know is a very powerful driver for career pathing, or a job shadowing experience, how would that student access that kind of opportunity? And I'm imagining it's kind of driving them to the website where, again, we may want to put that in the chat, but just kind of tell us how a student would begin navigating that process. Sharon, would you like to start us off with that response?
Sure, perfect. So internships with TD, typically they are paid internships, and they're typically at the sophomore year in college level. So you would apply for that in the fall of sophomore year in college, and then you'd be working during the summer of after sophomore year. We unfortunately don't have unpaid internships or sort of job shadowing, just the nature of, privacy for customer information and that kind of thing. You've got to be 18 years or older to work here. We can't have folks under 18 working, and you've got to be, you have customer access to information. So we don't have all those sort of job shadowing where you can come and do it for free. But I would encourage folks that are, on the call, or that you're speaking to other folks, if you can get even unpaid internships and you can shadow somebody else and put that on your resume. We talked earlier in the call about volunteer opportunities and getting involved in the community, whether that's, American Cancer Society, local food service companies. Get involved, because executives from companies go and get involved in the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Association. Get involved with, I don't know if people have, LinkedIn, but get involved with sort of social media groups, the network, and find folks. If you're targeting, you want to come work for TD, it'd be great. Go talk to a local TD branch office. Go talk to people. We're always in the community. So to get to know us and find out more, get involved in some of those organizations, and you'll find us. As far as internships, yeah, that's typically our formal internship programs are sophomores in college. And then we look to, take them right through their college experience and then into careers right through master's degrees and so forth.
Wonderful. So a clear career pathway for potential students to consider. Very good. Well, thank you, Sharon. Pam, what kind of internship or job shadowing opportunities are available?
Similar to Sharon, so we have a campus internship program, again, really targeted for juniors and above in college. And so, of course, similar to Sharon, again, we recruit for those typically in the fall for summer opportunities. So we'll be welcoming our intern class sometime in May. And it is a paid internship for about 12 weeks. What I will share at the high school level, we are experimenting with two partnerships right now. The first is within our research area, and it's with, I'm having to look at my notes here, the Great Promise Partnership, which is a nonprofit organization. There we are enabling a very select few of high school students to come on site. And again, there are some certain requirements that they have to have. I think it's primarily seniors and have to be 18, but we welcome them on site for just a few hours a week to help us in that research division. And secondly, we are partnering with communities and schools where we try to identify students who are at risk and work with those teachers and school and students to ensure that we are giving them access to, again, more of that financial literacy component. It may be an opportunity where they can come on site as part of our, and not of recently, of course, with the pandemic, but at one point they were able to come on site and participate in a series of workshops and hands-on learning experiences that we offer for students as a part of our economic outreach program. So we certainly have a desire to expand that. We want to, kind of retro on how this experiment has gone and what's our true bandwidth to be able to support something more longer term. But that's generally how someone would get involved. And I echo Sharon's sentiment. If you can get involved in any type of volunteer activity, even if it's just, going somewhere for one day, you put that on your resume, but that also gives you that opportunity to network, right? Get to know folks, keep in touch with them, identify some possible mentors or folks that can help advocate for you and really understand, what your interests are as a student. I'd also say leveraging counselors, high school teachers. I mean, there's coaches, whatever. There's so many opportunities and folks that, as a student, that you engage with. And I'd say never miss an opportunity to let someone know what your interests are, things that you're passionate about, things that you want to do, because you never know what that conversation leads to.
Very good points from you both, and great advice for students to seek out some opportunities rather than waiting for somebody to approach them about an opportunity. Mark, what kind of internship opportunities are available with Bank of America?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of go backwards. So just as Pam and Sharon said, for internships, that's primarily for college juniors. It's in the fall, and it's administered at the enterprise level. So we don't have a local team that provides internships for Bank of America here in Jacksonville. So what happens is the college student has to go into the My Career site, and it's almost like a job posting, and then they go through the process. The internship is offered. It could be offered locally in Jacksonville, Charlotte, New York, Chicago. So there are many more opportunities than just what's in Jacksonville, but some of the internships are in Jacksonville. And then after they serve the internship that summer, it's competitive, and then many of them are offered a full-time role to come back after their senior year. So that's the internship. Post high school, we do have some what we call apprenticeships, and we normally go through organizations that are in the local area, right? And such as, and they're around the country, Empower, Urban Alliance, Year Up. Here in Jacksonville, we partner with Year Up. We have a pretty significant Year Up footprint here in Jacksonville with Bank of America. And that's for young adults, 18 to 24. They partner with Florida State College at Jacksonville. And, the internship is for 6 months. And then based on how things work, they're offered a role here at the bank. And we found that to be fairly successful, and it has grown over the last few years. So those are the two ways that you can access the bank, through the internship and apprenticeships.
Wonderful. Well, multiple different access points based on your respective organizations for folks to consider. So very good information and insight you've shared there. Thank you. What really excites you about what you see happening in your industry in the next several years? We've talked about how much the industry has changed, but in looking forward, what is really exciting to you when you think about the future? And Pam, if you would lead us off with that response.
Sure. I think it's a lot of what we've talked about. So I've been in the HR space, all in the financial services industry. There's a story behind that, by the way, for almost 30 years. And one might question, oh my gosh, why do you stay that long? But it's really around, for me, the progression that I've seen over time. And I, as an HR professional specifically, one of the things that we really strive to be and to be known for is that strategic partner and trusted advisor. And I am seeing that we are migrating our way there really quickly. And because we have such a understanding in terms of business acumen of what's going on, with our business line leaders and just the mission of the organization. So I think that's a really critical component. And related to that, as an organization, that ability to be nimble, as we've talked about, again, being progressive, understanding innovation in this space, and being okay to recognize that it's not that you can have progress over perfection. So some things may not always go according to plan, but allowing yourself the opportunity to say that it's safe to try, it's safe to experiment with. And we here, specifically at the Federal Reserve, we are on an agility journey. So a lot of the terms that you're hearing me talk about, they are agility practices that we have chosen to employ. Traditionally, when you've thought about the financial services industry, some may have said, oh, it's slow to change, the pace is slow, takes a lot of approvals to get things done. And what we're seeing specifically in our organization, and I think it translates into the industry, is that we really have to be quick to market on things. Our ability to, again, be nimble and quick is imperative for our success. And so I'm very excited to be along the journey. I'm very excited to be a part of it, and certainly a part, being able to help shape it. So thank you for the question. It is great to be here and great to look forward to the change that's going to continue.
Very interested in that term, agility journey. I have to say, I've not heard that one before. So that is very intriguing, Pam. Like that.
Yes, I'd be happy to talk to you about it over some coffee one day. It's we've been on it for almost 2 years now, but we have certainly seen a tremendous impact as a result.
That's great. So Mark, what excites you about what's happening in this industry?
Yes, so the thing that comes to mind for me is that if you just really think about it, right now, talent is at a premium. And so we're seeing a lot of focus. I mean, more than I've seen in my over 20 years, on compensation, benefits, workplace flexibility. And if you look at all three of those as the total mix of what you can offer a teammate, the key is which companies are going to get it right, okay? Resources are limited, so you can't pay everybody $1 million. Benefits are limited, right? Workplace flexibility, we all can't work at home, right? But the key is what's the proper mix, and it's based on your customers, right? So I think that's exciting. I mean, here at the bank, getting to $25 an hour by 2025, I mean, that's exciting, right? To actually hear a financial institution come out, let's increase wages and compensation. The other thing is the importance or the influx of what I would call non-traditional benefits. So a lot of investment in employee resource groups and diversity and inclusion. We actually offer our teammates 2 hours a month of paid time to volunteer. You'll be surprised at how many people love that, right? Tuition reimbursement. But we've taken a step further. Now we pay for certifications in an effort to retain talent, because talent's a premium. And don't forget, we have those technology resources as well. So we want to make sure people stay current on their certifications. So those are the things that excite me about what's going on in the industry.
A whole bunch of great things are going on. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that is exciting to think about talent, how there's such a shift in the workforce and the expectations of the workforce, and then what the bank is doing to meet that. So Sharon, what are you thinking? What excites you about the industry?
So, I think the industry is exciting. I have, been in many industries over my career, right? Restaurants, retail, and finance, and I've enjoyed each of them. Finance, I don't know. I feel like everything, if you hear the term, we're all in finance, right? So we understand follow the money, and everything follows the money, your career, your industries, your networking, of all that's going on. And so I feel like finance and banking have been around forever and will continue to be around. It's a stable career, a stable industry, and lots of businesses, of course, use, whether it's our lending services, our investment services. So your career in finance can lead you into several other industries because it's the foundation or the integral partner to how the world works. I've seen people in our organization go from promotable opportunities in the retail and commercial world into, I don't know if you can you still hear me? My
Yes.
screen just froze. Okay, good. Well, maybe you can hear me, but my screen's frozen. So, so they've gone into many other industries, right? I've seen people go and be a CEO at an organization. When they leave here, they end up shifting out of finance and going into running other companies because they have the foundation principles of finance. It's where everything sort of starts and ends and everything in between. And finance sort of meets my, integrity and good, good people, good making sense kind of business. So it fits my personality and I can still be, happy and jovial. I used to think, oh, you had to wear suits, black suits and pearls. That's what I used to think, right? And then, it's come so far, right? Now we're working from home in a little bit more casual environment. And that's the beauty of it too, is all of us are moving with the way the industry is going, the way the world is going, to be flexible and accommodating to families, people that are raising children, people that are taking care of parents. It's an industry that works well with your life and where your life is going. So I think it's great, and I'd encourage anybody to do it. I encourage both my teenage kids to do it. So
That's wonderful. Well, I appreciate the enthusiasm that all three of you have for this industry, where it's at now and where it's going as well. So our final question for today, and this may be, Pam, where you talk about some of the strategies that you've used in your career. I think that would be great advice to share at this point. But looking back on your own experiences, what do you wish you knew about your field and your industry before you chose your own career path? And Mark is going to lead us on that question's response.
Well, if I had to think back, so I came into HR right at a point where we were transitioning out of being administrative and much more strategic. And for many of my colleagues along the way, that was a struggle. We were used to doing the paperwork, whereas there was this new thought of, we need to provide the systems where individuals can do the paperwork, and we're more of a coach or a consultant. And as that was going on, I was pretty maniacal about becoming a subject matter expert, getting 2 masters. I've had every certification imaginable, right? And really focused on understanding the HR rules. I wish I would have taken more time to understand the business more, and maybe taken a role in the business, whether when I was the HR person at the nonprofit or when I worked at, when I was at American Express, and even now at Bank of America. I think it would have served me well as an HR professional to really understand what a business leader goes through on a daily basis. It's one thing to understand how we make money in all those companies, right? But it's not until you actually live the life of that business leader can you coach them even more effectively. And, I have no regrets. My career has served me well personally and professionally. But if I had to really go back and do it again, I would have tried to take a role in the business and then come back to the function so that I could have lived what some of the leaders lived that I was coaching on a daily basis.
Wonderful. Well, that's a really interesting perspective, and wanting to have not only that subject matter expertise, but also the bigger picture perspective. I think that's great advice for people to think about in any
Yeah.
profession.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you. Sharon, your experiences, what do you wish you knew?
Yeah, I feel like I've been, sort of blessed or very fortunate that I've made some good choices that served me well, my family well, and I find my career rewarding in the HR aspect and also in finance. As I talked about my teenage kids earlier, whether if they chose a job in HR, they would do fine. If they chose a job in banking and in finance, I would probably steer them towards commercial finance, wealth management, both very, well-respected industries and financially lucrative in a base salary and incentive. And also the work environment, right? Those are typically, Monday through Friday jobs. You've got like events and galas at night and on the weekends and external marketing and sales requirements. But those are lucrative kind of businesses. And I've been fortunate enough in my numerous years in banking that I understand the line of business. So while I'm happy with HR, I feel like I could have also been happy in a commercial line of business, a sales, analytical. Those roles in the banking groups, commercial lending, wealth management, retail, are looking for an analytical, background and analytical philosophy and sales approach, both of which I'm comfortable in. So I could have done well in those fields also. I would probably steer my kids more towards, those particular careers. What I've, sort of been lucky in this job, in this industry, is I can really sit wherever I want to sit. I can live and raise my family, my dogs, all that, wherever I want to live and cover a large territory. My son was thinking of something to be a doctor, but then he's like, if I ever want to relocate, what about all my patients? When you think about where your life is going to be and, that my kids want to travel, well, if you're a physician, perhaps, you've got to be where your patients are. You can't necessarily just get up and move your patients. So, consider where you want your life to go. And you don't know all that at 18, even at 25, even at, 50. You don't necessarily know all that, but think about where you want your trajectory to go and sort of chart your course. And then you just get lucky along the way and talk to people that are doing it. That's the sort of the ending advice that I would give to folks, is talk to folks. Talk to people in your community. We talked about earlier in the call, talk to people in your community, your neighbors, your teachers, your coaches, and people that are, in your environment, and find, ask them the questions about what made them successful. I've been pretty lucky. I've been pretty fortunate, and I would encourage, folks to do anything that they perceive they'd like to do in finance. It's a great industry.
That's great. And you bring up some wonderful points about the industry and the ability to work in different locations. All those things are very attractive. And maybe some of it was luck, but I also know that all three of you have put in a lot of hard work and dedication and commitment to your respective roles as well. So you should be commended and acknowledged for that also. Pam, you're going to wrap up our discussion today in response to this question. So what do you wish you knew?
So I'm going to take a little bit of a different spin on the question, but I think I'll still answer it. And so I want to
Okay.
just share, you mentioned as a part of my background, so I have an undergrad degree in accounting. And as I graduated from Clark Atlanta, my goal was to go work for one of the big six accounting firms at the time. I landed at Bank of America and I was an auditor for 2.5 years. And I'll be very transparent with you. I hated that job. I hated it. But what I learned from it really helped to propel me into all the successes that I've had. And Mark, you mentioned about, having that business acumen. I learned the skill to go into an area and really consult and ask questions and do a deep dive and really synthesize, here is kind of what I see, here are some recommendations for improvement. And but what I didn't like about the job, I shouldn't say I hated, what I didn't like about it was the fact that I am a people person. And when you think about numbers and just the things that you do from an audit perspective, those things don't talk back to you. People don't like to see auditors coming. I didn't like that feeling.
Right.
So I started just kind of asking questions again, talking to people, seeking out mentors and people who had different experiences. And I started very early on to raise my hand for what we call immersive experiences. So, opportunities for me to get short term, real life assignments, not just a day in the life, but really being able to go into a particular function or unit and actually doing that job while also maintaining my core work, my everyday job. That's a huge sacrifice, by the way. And it does take a partnership and support from your leader. But I learned that if I could have people see me doing things outside of what I was known for, that would likely give me an opportunity to be considered for other things. And I'd say since I've been at the Fed, that has truly been the way that I have experienced greater career mobility, the way that I have seen an increase in scope and complexity of assignments. Because while I love HR, I'm very passionate about it. And I've told folks I'll do it here or anywhere else. That's how I do it for 30 years because I have such passion around it, but I create the variety in experiences by letting everybody that'll listen, whether it's the person I work for, whether again it's advocates that I know that I have around the organization, mentors. Hey, I have an interest in that work. So I would say I would leave you with that. Make sure that you know what it is you like, kind of, really being in tune with that self awareness, being willing to try something, and being honest about the fact that, you know what, I don't really like that. Or perhaps I'm not as good at that as I thought I would be. But giving someone the opportunity to have exposure and to try it out in a safe environment is one of the things that I think really is helpful. And when you think about retention of talent and career development, and understanding that up is not the only way, sometimes it requires you to move right or left in a lateral environment, or maybe even down or back and then propel up. So there is no one particular way. And so those have been, I'd say, life lessons for me, being okay with still being, I'm at this level, but I have expanded scope because it's given me exposure to other things. And so I just leave everyone with that as a consideration. And again, thank you for the opportunity today. I've enjoyed being here and being a part of the panel.